Hi everyone, it's Ardith, and today I'm back with my second installment for this month's Too Many Card series with Emily Leiphart. This time we're using products from Honeybee Stamps, the Rainbow Wishes stamp set and the Honey Cuts dies. This set has everything you need to make a rainbow card, including great sentiments, sunshine, and clouds. I built my card design around the sentiment that says, "You're a rainbow after the storm." I started by creating my stormy background with a panel of 80-pound Nina Solar White cardstock and 3 colors of Catherine Pooler ink. I started with Twilight, which is a light gray, and I blended it all over the panel, intentionally not going for a smooth and even blend this time. I used a swirling circular motion to get uneven coverage to add to the stormy atmosphere. To add interest to my gray sky, I added some Skylight ink, which is a muted teal color, and Stone Blue, which is a gray blue. This sky still looks like a stormy gray, but the layered shades add a lot of interest and depth to it. To add to the rainy day look, I spritzed the panel with water and then lifted some of the color with a paper towel. I was careful not to add too much water, as this isn't watercolor cardstock. Next, I used the 2 partial rainbow dies to cut a full rainbow from white cardstock. Each of these dies cuts 3 strips, and when you put them all together, they form a full rainbow. I used sponge daubers to blend a bright rainbow of Catherine Pooler inks on each strip, using quite a lot of ink to get good, vibrant coverage. I used this rainbow as an umbrella on my card, so I wanted it to have a watery look as if it was out in the rain. Once I had all the ink blending finished, I spread the strips out so they weren't touching before spritzing them with water and lifting the color with a paper towel. If they're touching and they get wet, the water-reactive colors might travel from one strip to the other. I wanted it to look wet, but not runny. I set the rainbow and the background panel aside to dry. Next, I worked on my sentiment, which has the word rainbow spelled out in larger letters than the rest of it. I wanted to stamp the word rainbow in rainbow colors and leave the rest black, and for me, the easiest way to do that was to perform some stamp surgery. I know this isn't for everyone, and you could use masking instead. If you do cut your sentiment apart, it's important to use very sharp scissors with a small pointy tip to make it easier to get in between the letters. As I'm working, I pull the 2 sides tight with my fingers to help make it easier to get the scissors between the words. And the most important tip is to take your time. This one was pretty easy, since the words are well spaced and in straight lines, but I had to be careful with that tiny dot over the I in the word rainbow. I placed the word rainbow into my mini MISTI so that I could stamp it multiple times. Because I needed to stamp it so many times, it was absolutely critical that the cardstock stayed exactly where it needed to be. So I used some temporary adhesive on the back of the panel as well as a magnet before I started inking up the word. Stamping like this is a perfect time to use a smaller ink pad to help with the precision of inking up one letter at a time. I started with red and inked up the R, and then I moved through the rainbow. It doesn't really matter too much if you get some ink onto the next letter, as this will just help to produce a blended look. But once I got past the lightest color, the yellow, and I moved into the green, I used some tape to mask over the yellow letter so that I wouldn't accidentally cover over it with the much darker green ink. And suddenly I realized that there are 7 letters in rainbow, so I needed to add a color to the 6 I had used for the umbrella rainbow. I pulled out Aquatini and then finished with the blue and purple. I cleaned off the rainbow portion of the stamp before placing the other 2 pieces of the sentiment back together with the rainbow on the door of my MISTI. Then I removed the rainbow word, inked up the other 2 portions with VersaFine Onyx ink, and stamped them. It was easy to replace the 2 stamp pieces, which is good, because it's important to have them in exactly the right place to be able to use the coordinating die to cut the sentiment out. And here you can see that it worked out perfectly. To assemble my rainbow umbrella, I used a piece of 2-inch Post-it tape as a sticky area where I could get each colored strip into the right place. And once I had them all together, I flipped the whole thing over and used plain clear tape to attach them more permanently. I used my scissors to trim off bits of tape that were overhanging the edge. Then I cut strips of foam tape so that they would support the rainbow when it's popped up on the background. To create the handle for my umbrella, I used the cloud dies in the set. These cloud dies cut a solid cloud along with a frame, which could be used to create a shaker, which would be fun. But I also saw the shape of an umbrella handle. I just couldn't decide which cloud had the right length of handle, so I cut both. I used a dark gray Copic marker to color the portion of the cloud frame that I would use, and then I cut them with my scissors and set them aside until I needed them. I got off to a bad start when I began assembling the card. I placed my rainy background onto a white card base, but I didn't get it quite straight. No worries. I have this old Cricut metal spatula that is thin enough to get between the panel and the card base, and as long as I'm patient and work carefully, I can usually lift up the panel. This allows me to replace it back on the card base in the perfect place. Next, I laid everything out on the panel for spacing, and also so I could decide which umbrella handle looked better. In the end, I chose the longer one, since the umbrella has that little bit of empty space right in the center. I peeled the release paper away from the foam tape and placed the umbrella down. Then I trimmed the top end of the handle and used some tiny drops of Nuvo Deluxe adhesive to glue it down, making sure I was happy with the placement. I pressed it down to make sure it was really stuck. Then I added foam tape to the sentiment and placed that in the bottom corner, making sure it was straight before I really pressed it down. To finish it off, I added some sparkling clear jewels from Pretty Pink Posh to create some shiny raindrops. I want to say a big thank you to Melissa from Honeybee Stamps and to Emily for inviting me to play along with the series this month. I've really enjoyed seeing how the two of us use the same products to come up with very different projects. If you missed my previous Too Many Cards video from earlier this month, I've linked it at the end of this video so you can find it easily. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up below and subscribe to my channel for more inspiration. Product links are below in the description and also on my blog. Thanks so much for watching. See you next time.